Hello, I'm Ashley, the DM for NATawesome. I'm going to be taking you through a temple build. This is going to be the Temple of Light. It is run by the brothers of the temple, and my party will be going here a little bit later on. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So first here I'm selecting what templates I'm going to use. Primarily I am using a forest one that I added in and the Arkenforge one. We're going to go ahead and pick the main terrain. I'm starting on level 0 and then I just kind of just build on that one really. And looks like we're just going to size it here. I'm trying to make this the bigger map so I have room for incursions in the forest or around the temple, or I can add in some Easter eggs later on for my party to find if they so choose to search. Next we're going to work on putting in the path. I tend to like to use polygon placement. It just helps me to get a little bit more of a rugged edge, though sometimes if you are not careful, you can cross back over where you started and it may not lay directly, and that's actually what happened to me a couple times here. So yeah, like I said, it just use polygon placement. You do a bunch of clicks so that you have a bunch of set points so that later on you can manipulate them to make it fit exactly how you would like to. And like I said, if you cross over by accident, it doesn't work. But this time I'm trying to zoom in a little bit more so I can make sure that I don't cross over any points that I've already done. This process can be a little tedious sometimes. You could do the same thing by using the paintbrush, but with the paintbrush you have smooth edges. You can then go back and blend that into the surrounding terrain, but I kind of like using this approach because, like I said before, you get a little bit less smooth edges and it just looks like it could be more natural. Previous attempts did not work so great. I was trying to conquer too big of a space without being zoomed in enough to see where I was actually placing the points so that I wasn't crossing over them. So I'm going to do it in smaller sections, which is not a problem. This is something that I realized while filming this, is that currently with the terrain you are not able to manipulate the points with polygon placement. Hopefully that will be something that they consider adding in later on, because when you are using polygon placement to do a wall, being able to manipulate it, just a single point to try to smooth something out, is great. That is definitely an added bonus. Like I said, hopefully they'll be considering adding that in later. Alright, so as you see, my path is curvy, not perfect, which is exactly what I want. This is supposed to be a place kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so the trail should not be well maintained. Next, we are going to lay down a river, because I have a reference picture that I saw where it was a monastery that has a river and a waterfall flowing out underneath it, and I thought that was a great idea since these guys also tend to make a lot of their own weapons, so I thought it would be cool to add like a forge on top of where the waterfall is. So here I just changed the repeatable width, found a pre-set river that I do enjoy using. Now I am working on the pool of water that's going to go underneath it for where the waterfall is going to come down. So we went ahead and chose the pool color, got the shape down. Now I'm going to go in with the brush, change the transparency a little bit, and so that I can make a like a sandy or muddy bank around the pool of water, so it's not just a pristine edge of the pool. I'm going to leave part of it uncovered because I am planning for the river to continue after the pool. And this could also possibly be a way of shipping items further downriver. They could have an area down below where they ship things out. So now we are just placing the continuation of the river and making sure that we remember to, or I remember to move the river down below the pool. That didn't work so well, so I'm moving the water and the edge around it on top. That is one great thing about Arkenforge is you are able to manipulate what goes on top of other objects, and you're able to build on that. So now Arkenforge has recently, I want to say in the last 2 patches ago, they included this really cool waterfall feature, and I've been trying to play around with it more and include it in a couple different maps. So to make this effect look more realistic, I found that if I place rocks at the top of the waterfall and then gradually make them smaller as you go down, it kind of gives it that illusion of a height change. And then you could also go in and add vegetation and other flowers and objects down below that are smaller, and it kind of helps play into that effect as well. So here I am just resizing some of the rocks, getting them to kind of look a little bit more natural. And then where the transition from the pool back into the river, I didn't really like how the color just stopped and started. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to do a little mixing of the waters to say. So I went ahead and found that color again, changed the transparency so that I could blend it into the river color a little bit more. And I'm not too worried about the river extending off that area. I go back before session and I will change the background color behind the map all to black so that it just the players won't be able to see what's going on there. So now I'm just kind of sizing out the area that I want to put the main hall for the temple, along with remembering to make sure I put that on top and change the transparency. And now I'm kind of just figuring out where I would like rooms to go. So just adding on a little extension there and putting a little path out in front. And we're going to put a little stable off to the side there later. So now that we got the floor down, we're going to go ahead and play around with adding walls in. So now we have the wall that I'd liked, and we're going to go ahead and put it on with the polygon placement. And I recently started doing this, and it is a game changer for getting these corners. Before, I was just doing line placement and my corners were overlapping, and then I was finding that when a character that was carrying a torch was walking through, the light was bleeding through and revealing things in rooms before I was ready for the players to see it. So this definitely helped. And when you use polygon placement to do the corners, make sure you do like 10 to 15 clicks when you are going around the corner to get that nice smooth angle adjustment. I also held control while doing it, which helped to keep it on the grid that was already there. And here you can see me going into the main cogwheel, clicking on the blue multi-cog, and that allows me to manipulate the points that I have set down. And this is why it's important to click as many times as you can while you're going around this, because the more points you have to manipulate, the more likelihood you'll be able to get the shape that you are desiring. So I've got that all figured out now. Now I'm kind of just trying to remember what size space I want for certain rooms, and started using the line placement. And then I remembered I didn't want any bleed through on the corners like I had just said. So you'll see me go back and delete certain objects. or parts of the wall that I'm laying down right now. A quick and easy way to do that is Control Z, which will undo the last action or last thing you did. You could do that multiple times and it will keep going backwards. Or you can click on all the objects you want to delete by holding Control and then selecting the objects you want to remove, and then just hitting the delete button on your keyboard. So now here I am remembering that I did want to make sure the corners were fully contained. And here I am again manipulating the points, and this is why, again, it's important to put down multiple points because it is easier for you to get the shape you want. Don't get frustrated if it looks a little wonky. Just take your time, and you'll be able to get it exactly how you want it to be. So right here, I'm deciding that I actually want to change the direction of the opening for this door because I realized that it was going to affect the architecture of a separate room that I wanted it to make. Okay, now we got all that done. Again, needing to go back and just play around with the points a little bit. It's okay. Maps take a while. This originally took me about 2 hours to do, but you could definitely do simpler ones faster. Also, Arkenforge recently released a new pack. Well, they've added to a new pack they have called Towns and Cities. They've added some modular homes and shops that are already pre-furnished or unfurnished. It just makes it quicker for you to build a town real quick. If especially like me, sometimes I last minute forget to have maps ready, or if you open a map and something's not right, you could quickly fix it by dropping in a modular home or shop. So now I am building another area that will be a library slash study area. In this main area, I'm planning on doing a indoor training area, and now I am going to add the wall to where the foundry and workshop is going to be. Getting that wall just right there. Again, I'm using the polygon placement while holding Control, which snaps it to the grid that is below. So it's very easy to get those straight lines. You don't have to do that. You can do it however you'd like. And that is the wonderful thing about Arkenforge, is it lets each and every single one of us create and design what we want. And that is one of the reasons why I like it. By the way, currently not sponsored by Arkenforge, but would love to be. Okay, so now I'm dropping in a sumo pit type of fighting ring. They do have this circle placement for like a wall, but I find it to be a very good ruler for, or not a ruler, but I guess like a trace line for me to go in and make a fairly perfect circle. So I realized that it was dropping the terrain underneath. So I'm just going in and manipulating that and just figuring out how to get that back. Okay, so let's try the circle again. And yep, so it was not going to the top like I wanted it to, so I just pulled the entire map out of the way, and now I'm using it as a template to make my own not so perfect but perfect circle. And then realizing that I don't actually need to keep it, so I'm just touching up that last little part of it. I'm going to keep what I drew, and yeah, so I deleted the original template that I used to create it, and now we're going to go ahead and group that, and so it stays all together when I move it as one, and now we're going to put it back inside of the temple. Just do a quick little adjustment, sizing. So now we have a sparring pit. And what training area is complete without some training dummies? So let's go ahead and get those placed in. They even have one that has looks like a flail and a shield. And then on my maps, each square is 5 feet. So I'm just resizing the dummies and doing some spacing that seems a little bit more realistic. And just realizing that that last dummy there is not going to quite fit. It's going to actually be almost in front of somebody's a door. So we're going to get rid of that. Now we're adding in some weapons racks, which I really like that they had those included and I didn't have to try to put together something myself, which in the past was just a table with weapons on top of it. Okay, so now we are going back and I am selecting all of the walls by holding Control while clicking on all of them. I'm group them all together real quick, and then I'm making sure I turn on the drop shadow and I believe it's toggle shadow. That way when people come through, again, the lighting doesn't go through the wall. Realizing that the map needed to be adjusted there real quick. Okay. And the software does, Arkenforge software does auto-save for you, which is really nice because I am not the greatest person in the entire world for remembering to hit the save button. So it is nice that it does that. Alright, so now we're going to do a little bit of interior decorating, and we're going to go up to furniture and find some beds. So again, since this is a temple, they're not going to be the fanciest beds in the world. So I just kind of picked something basic. And here I just did Control D, which will duplicate a highlighted item, which is great, especially when you want to make more than one that are all the same size. I'm just doing a slight variation of the directions that I'm putting the beds so that the rooms seem a little bit more individualized. Now, with these being, brothers of the temple, they have very few personal belongings. A lot of things are they don't really have worldly possessions. It's all very much shared. So we're just going to add a table in between the beds and a candle to light each of the rooms. I do have a wizard in my group who is very fond of using prestidigitation to light candles in rooms, so I'm going to make sure that I include a flame on each of these candles. That way he can prestidigitate to his heart's desire, and I can do the cool thing of hiding the flame effect now and turning it on when he chooses to use the spell in game. It's just nice little things like this that really get my players excited. Just to the little forethought for this particular player, and the fact that he can kind of manipulate the environment and actually see it happen is really cool. So here I'm just demonstrating how with the settings we chose for the wall earlier, it stops the light from penetrating through. So again, I already resized this flame, and I'm just duplicated it and placing it on each of the candles. And then I'm also changing how the light will affect the areas in the room. So I turned off the one of the effects there, so that the light actually spills off of the table and lights up the room a little bit more. And okay, moving another flame. And so for now, I have those hidden from, at least 2 of them hidden from my player's view, which is something I really like. I use that for when I put monster tokens in the environment, because I can, when I I share my video with my players, or my stream with my players, I have my own screen and they have a separate screen that they can see. So I can have a lot of hidden things that I see on my screen that they don't know about until I'm telling them to roll initiative. So here, I'm just making sure I'm adding back one of the palettes that I had put in. I'm looking for an extra thing to put into this bathroom. And also, I had found these pre-set tables, which are really cool. Takes a lot of the work out of it for me. And just realized that I put that in the wrong room. So this room is going to be a kind of mess hall, mess hall slash kitchen, open space to cook. So let's go ahead and find a oven, and I'm using more of a brick oven, getting that set in. And let's see, needing to add a table in for some more cooking stuff. So there's like a actual cooking workstation, and not finding a super fancy table, just trying to find one that is kind of rustic and works, and resizing it. And now I'm going to go back into the props that I have and the kitchen ones, and just grabbing a preset um, table clutter for the kitchen and just manipulated that real quick. Alright, so next, I believe we are going to work on the foundry, and I kind of forgot, like I had stumbled across this when I was building another map, but Arkenforge has included a forge and other like craft-like tools, and I just could not remember where it was. But another cool thing they have is that you can actually use this the search bar. Yep. So I'm just looking in there, and so there you can see I'm moving around a one of the modular buildings. So they already had a completely built blacksmith shop, but that's not what I need right now. I'm trying out different forges to see which one's really fitting this area. I ended up liking this open one, and ideally this would be, an outside one, but who's to say this isn't kind of like an open area. So now I'm adding in a foundry, and of course we need some wood in there to keep the forge going. And again, like I said, you are able to use layering to affect what's on top. So I just did a little stack of wood there. We have an anvil placed, and now I'm going to be adding in a trough for or a bucket of water. What was I looking for? Decided against that. So now we're going to go ahead and add in some more weapons racks in there. Just moving things around a little bit. And I also figured out that you can add additional weapons to the weapons rack, which is great because, not everybody is looking for a dagger or a short sword. Some people may need a crossbow or a bow. But seeing that that doesn't fit on there so great, we're going to actually go ahead and make a separate area for the bows and arrows. So just grabbing another table. This is what I tend to do a lot for shops, is I'll just grab a table and just throw different types of items on there, rope, lanterns, candles, just anything I think my adventurers may need, depending on what the shop is. If it's, a bakery, there'll be more pies and cake type stuff, just whatever it ends up being. So I'm just trying to see if I can find some other arrows to put there, but I do not think I'm having any luck. And there again, you can see some of the other odds and ends I had. Thought about putting down some armor, but realizing that's not really how these guys use things. They use more spell endowed cloths. So next we're going to, let's see, what am I looking for? And there's that trough that I thought about placing, and let's see, it's placed it, so that looks good. changed my mind. Thought I had a barrel that had water in it, but could not find that either. So um, I'll just leave that how that is for now. So far we have the bedrooms, the bath, the mess hall, the training area, and the forge. Now let's work on the study slash library. Found this kick-ass little fireplace that has an effect in it. Kind of changes how the light is going in there. And now I'm just looking for, bookshelves, other things that you would find in the library. So these guys tend to hunt, monsters and other creatures from people's nightmares. So I found some hides and thought it would be really cool to just put one of those down because who knows, maybe it's a werewolf hide. Alright, so next I'm looking for, those bookshelves, and there we go. There's the bookshelves. So we're just going to go ahead and put a couple of those in there. Not only is it filling up the room and adding detail, but I also like them because it gives my players an opportunity to search for scrolls, books, anything like that. They don't always find things, but if I think they should, they will. And now we're going ahead and set up some study areas or reading areas. And this is how you get chairs underneath the tables. So go ahead and get the table and the chair aligned and how you think you would sit in it. And then select the chair, and then you're just going to move it down a layer underneath the table. For those of you who have used Adobe Photoshop and are familiar with the layering effect, this is very similar. So you're not able to see a table that has all the layers on it, but essentially the item you place after another is on top, the other is below. So you just go ahead and place those and move them, manipulate them until you have them on whatever layer you want them to be on. Okay, so now I'm adding in a globe that I just randomly found. So there's an opportunity for the players to find a world map if they do not light the library on fire again. So now I'm just creating an altar. Again, this is a temple of light, so there should be some sort of religious aspect to it for these guys. And I'm just copying the flames now, adjusting them, their brightness, and getting them aligned with the candles. Not able to see where that one went, so let's try that again. Just zooming in, making sure I don't actually lose the candle flame. Oh, and I moved the floor. Okay, gonna have to move that back real quick. There we go. Alright, so copying that, moving it, making sure it's on top. There we go. Placing that. And again, I'm going to make sure that these are things that the players can manipulate in game. We're going to adjust the brightness of these flames and change how big the radius is for those flames. There we go, and just making sure they're all the same. And you can Control C to copy those numbers, and then Control V to paste that into the same box on a different flame. So there I'm noticing that there is an additional flame underneath the altar, which I'll have to make sure I go back and adjust later. So, oh, and there's another discovery is when you hit Control C, it actually not only copies those that code, but it is actually copying the flame, and Control V will paste another flame. So realizing that, I took a piece of paper and quickly jotted down the number that the hex code for that, and just typed it in manually because I was losing against just copying and pasting multiple flames. So there we go. Again, I forgot and accidentally made a copy and pasted the flame again. So had to go back and manipulate those just a tad. And then, like I said, I realized that there was an extra flame in there. Adjusted it, got the brightness under control and the color, and called that good. And just tested how bright they were in the environment if it was dark. Alright, so now I'm going to work on the stable next. Okay, so of course for that we need to throw down some different terrain. And I'm just doing a simple rectangle for this. I'm not really worried about the color of the ground, though you can manipulate that if you so choose to. And it's just going to stay dirt for this. So now I'm just doing the wall around the stable and using polygon placement again, my new favorite way of placing walls. And then remembering that I needed to build a couple stalls in there. Took a minute to think about how I wanted to do that. Okay, there we go. And, you know, like I said, if it looks funky, just manipulate the points. And you'll be able to straighten it out. So just quickly throwing down some straight lines. And using the control key to snap to those, the grid lines, just to make sure my lines are straight. And again, you don't have to do that. It's just the way I find the easiest to get straight lines. So this being a stable, we're going to go ahead and drop some hay in for the horses, and some hitching posts and a trough. And then we're also going to throw some hay in there as bedding. And I'm just moving it down so a layer, so that it, or not a layer, I'm moving it down so that it is underneath the wall, so that it is not on top of the wall, because that looks a little funny. Okay, so next we are going to tackle filling in some of this empty space. So I'm going to turn off the forest and wilderness and just use the plants provided by Arkenforge. I'm using evergreens as this is a kind of in the mountains type of area. I'm manipulating the object brush density. So I am literally scribbling trees into this area. I'm not too worried if they're overlapping right now. Again, this is a densely packed forest, and you know, trees grow very close together in some forests. So again, found a different tree. So another trick you can do to get a variation in the size, you can kind of see some of them are different sized here, is you can hold shift while you're doing it, which will vary the shape and the color tone of objects you're placing. So now I'm just kind of going in and trying to make sure none of them are sitting directly on top of each other. I'm okay if they're kind of close together. We're just trying to fill in some more of those spaces to demonstrate to my players that this is, you know, not a wood that you would go and simply walk through. You should be on edge because there are monsters about. Now I'm going in and I'm going to select an area of trees, and I'm just going to enlarge them. And then liking how that looks, I'm going to go ahead and do that in several areas. That also increases the shadow on some of those trees slightly. And then again, after that manipulation, just kind of moving things around to make sure that the proper placement is there. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, so liking the size variation because there should be young and old trees in a forest. Yeah, and so now I'm just going to finish moving things around, again making sure nothing is directly on top of each other because that looks a little weird. And I definitely left some empty spaces for dropping in monster tokens at a different point in time. Okay, so that is looking pretty good. Just adjusting the map there. Okay, so I'm liking how that's looking. I'm going to add in my monsters off screen so that none of my players will see that. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like seeing videos like this. I do have the original length video available on my Twitch channel. please subscribe and hit the little notification bell to get the most up-to-date videos. Have an amazing day, and thanks for watching.